My name is Mark, and for 33 years, I believed I had the kind of marriage people envied. Loyal, lasting, built on decades of love and trust. I lost 176 pounds to reclaim my health and reignite the passion with the woman I thought I'd grow old with. Life finally felt right, until one phone call shattered everything. What she did while I sat at home, loving her, still keeps me up at night. You think you know your partner after a lifetime together? So did I, until I found out just how far one betrayal can reach. This is how it all unraveled. We met in the late 1980s, back when hair was big and music was louder. I was working as a bouncer at a nightclub in downtown Houston. She came in with a group of friends, radiant, confident, magnetic. She wasn't the loudest, but somehow, her presence was impossible to ignore. She had a smile that made people stop mid-sentence, and eyes that saw through the nonsense. I remember clearing a path through the crowd just to say hello. 2 months later, we moved in together. 2 years later, we were married. And I never once looked back. Life wasn't always easy, but it was ours. We were partners in every sense. We worked, we played, we fought, we made up. She supported me when I joined the military. I supported her when she wanted to start her own salon business. We were always a team, always honest, always faithful, or so I believed. Somewhere along the way, life slowed down. I suffered a training injury during a military exercise that took me off active duty and placed me behind a desk. Eventually, I was medically discharged. That's when I started to gain weight. I went from moving all day to sitting for hours, and the pounds just added up year after year. My energy dipped. My motivation disappeared. Slowly, our sex life faded until it became a distant memory. We entered what many people refer to as the dead bedroom phase. It lasted nearly 20 years. Linda never complained. Not really. She'd make a few comments about my health, or how I wasn't the man she married physically, but she always said she loved me. We tried to spice things up here and there, weekend getaways, new routines, intimacy books, but nothing seemed to stick. I told myself we were just getting older, that maybe this was how things went after so many years. Still, deep down, I felt like I had failed her, as a husband, as a man. But I had been cheated on before. In my early 20s, I was with a woman who betrayed me with someone I thought was a friend. That wound never truly healed, and when Linda and I got married, I made it clear that infidelity was my one and only red line. I could weather storms. I could forgive almost anything. But cheating? That was non-negotiable. Despite the drought in our bedroom, I never stopped loving Linda. If anything, my love deepened with time. She was the mother of my children, my partner through hardship, and the only person who truly knew the worst and best of me. Even when intimacy was rare, we still laughed, still held hands on the couch, still whispered, "I love you," before bed. I genuinely believed we would be together until death did us part. Then one morning, about 3 years ago, I woke up short of breath after walking up a single flight of stairs. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My gut hung over my waistband. My face was bloated, my skin pale. I saw the man I swore I'd never become. That day, I made a decision. It started slow, walking around the neighborhood, changing my eating habits, cutting sugar. Within months, the pounds started to fall away. I joined a gym, hired a trainer, and eventually underwent a tummy tuck to deal with the excess skin. Over 2 years, I lost 176 pounds. For the first time in over 2 decades, I could breathe freely, run, and, yes, make love without an asthma attack or collapsing in exhaustion. But I didn't do it to look good. I did it to live longer. I wanted to be there for my grandkids, to dance at their weddings. I did it for my health, because I was on a fast track to a heart attack. And I did it for Linda, to revive the intimacy we once had. And it worked. Suddenly, we were having sex again. A lot. 3, sometimes 4 times a week. And it wasn't mechanical, it was passionate, eager, electric. Linda seemed to be enjoying every second of it. Her moans, the way her body responded. There's no faking that kind of desire. I felt younger, more alive. She told me she loved me more than ever. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Strangely, though, she started acting different. She'd comment on how women were now giving me attention in public, how I seemed to attract glances at the store or smiles from waitresses. She joked about it, but I could tell there was insecurity brewing beneath her words. She had gained a little weight, but I didn't care. I told her every single day that she was beautiful, that I loved her just the same. We had a bond that I thought was unshakable. We were open with our phones, our messages. We shared our locations not out of paranoia, but safety. There were no secrets, or at least, that's what I thought. Then came the trip. A weekend getaway with her two sisters, out of state, something they did once or twice a year. I didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her completely. I had no idea that trip would change everything. It was a Friday evening, and I had just finished a long day at work. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of stillness that made every creak in the floorboards feel louder than it should. Linda had been gone for 2 days at that point, off enjoying a well-deserved break with her sisters in a neighboring state. I didn't think much of it. She'd done trips like that before, sightseeing, shopping, wine tasting. I always encouraged her to go. She deserved it. After all, she'd stood by me through years of weight gain, physical setbacks, and the dead bedroom years. Letting her have time with her sisters was the least I could do. I was driving home when my phone buzzed. It was Linda. I smiled and answered, expecting to hear about the beautiful places she'd seen or the fun she was having with her sisters. But her voice was shaky. Off. Broken. Mark, has my sister talked to you? She asked, her tone frantic, almost like she was about to hyperventilate. No, I said, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. What's going on? Are you okay? There was a long silence. Then came the words that cracked the foundation of my world. I cheated on you. Time froze. My heart didn't just sink, it shattered. I pulled the car over instinctively, not even realizing I had done it. The sounds around me disappeared. All I could hear was the dull roar of disbelief echoing in my head. She continued talking, sobbing between her words, as if trying to outrun the consequences with explanations. She told me they were drinking at the hotel bar, that a married couple had joined them. Strangers, she claimed. Her sisters had eventually left, but she stayed. They invited her up to their room to keep drinking. Compliments were thrown at her. How beautiful she was, how lucky her husband must be. She claimed she didn't feel like herself, that she was too drunk to think clearly. And then it happened. The man touched her. His wife encouraged it. They told her no one would know, that it was just for fun. She said she didn't feel in control, that it was like watching someone else do it. And yet, she admitted, she had sex with him while the wife watched. I sat there, motionless in my car, numb. My breathing was shallow, my mouth dry. Every second of that call burned into my memory like acid. She begged, sobbed, told me it was a mistake, said she hated herself, that she didn't know why she did it, that she loved me more than anything. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. Not yet. I told her something that came from the deepest part of my soul, cold, sharp, and painfully clear. You didn't make a mistake. You made a decision. And then I hung up. I turned off my phone and drove home in complete silence. No music. No calls. Just the sound of my own breathing and the distant roar of traffic that now felt like 1,000 miles away. When I got home, I didn't turn the lights on. I sat in the living room, staring into the dark. My thoughts raced. My hands shook. My world, the life I had carefully built with the woman I adored, had just been detonated by her own hand. That night, I cried. Not just a tear or two. I wept like a child. I cried for the woman I thought I knew. I cried for the love I had given so freely. I cried for our children, our grandchildren, for the way this would ripple through the lives we'd built. I grieved the loss of our future, the one I had clung to through every storm, through every silent night and hopeful morning. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think straight. For 2 days, I shut myself off from the world. No phone, no TV, just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it haunts. Eventually, I turned my phone back on. The screen lit up with dozens, maybe hundreds of messages, from Linda, from her sisters, even from my kids. They were worried. Linda had told them she made a horrible mistake. She was on her way home. I knew then that I couldn't face her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I called my children. I told them the truth. Not every detail, but enough. That their mother had betrayed me. That I was safe, but broken. I asked them not to tell her where I was going. I needed space. Time. Air to breathe in a world that suddenly felt foreign to me. Then I sent her a message. Just one. We're done. Don't contact me again. We're getting a divorce. I didn't need to hear any more apologies. I didn't care how sorry she was. The damage was done. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with had detonated a bomb right in the middle of our marriage, and now I had to find my way through the wreckage alone. After sending that final message to Linda, just a few cold, final words, I turned off my phone again and stared at the wall for what felt like hours. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to salvage. In that moment, I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I wasn't even sure I was a man anymore. I was just a shattered version of who I had been, grief-stricken, humiliated, and drowning in the weight of betrayal. The silence in the house was unbearable. Every tick of the clock, every distant hum of a passing car outside, seemed to mock me. This was supposed to be our home, our safe place. But now, it felt like a tomb. Everything inside reminded me of her, of us. The photos on the mantel, the indentations on the couch cushions where we used to sit together, the scent of her shampoo still lingering in the air. I felt like I was losing my mind. For 2 full days, I didn't leave the house. I barely ate. I didn't shower. I didn't care. I was a ghost haunting the ruins of my own life. I played out our memories in my head like cruel reruns of a show I no longer recognized. The wedding day, the birth of our children, our late-night kitchen dances, our road trips. All of it felt like a lie now. A sweet, elaborate performance masking a truth I never saw coming. When I finally turned my phone back on, the screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of voicemails, hundreds of messages. From Linda, her sisters, even my kids. They were all trying to reach me. The last message said she was already on her way home. I panicked. I couldn't be here when she walked through that door. I couldn't see her face. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and left the house. The same house we had built together, brick by brick, memory by memory. Before I walked out the door, I left a note on the kitchen table. I told her to pack her things and go stay at her mother's. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want her anywhere near me. I drove with no destination in mind. Just away. I called my daughter and told her what I'd done. She cried, told me she understood, told me to come stay with her. I said I would eventually. But first, I needed to clear my head. I needed to breathe. Later that evening, I called her sister, Melissa, the one who had almost blown the secret wide open. What she told me made my stomach turn. Linda hadn't told me the whole truth. According to Melissa, the man Linda had slept with wasn't some random stranger at a hotel bar. He was a client. A long-distance business contact Linda had spoken to many times over the phone. She had arranged to meet him during the trip. The story about drinks at the bar and a spontaneous encounter? Fabricated. Carefully crafted to soften the blow. The truth was uglier. She'd planned the meeting in advance, knowing full well what could happen. Worse yet, she kept the whole thing secret from her sisters until after it had happened. She came stumbling back to the hotel room at dawn, disheveled and shaken. Melissa said Linda collapsed on the floor and started crying uncontrollably, admitting what she'd done. At first, Melissa thought she'd been assaulted. But no, it was consensual, voluntary, chosen. Linda told her sister she never planned to tell me. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, a fantasy fulfilled, then forgotten. She only confessed because Melissa threatened to do it for her. My heart, already cracked, split wider. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't drunken stupidity. It was premeditated betrayal. And suddenly, everything made a twisted kind of sense. Her insecurities when I lost weight, her strange mood shifts, her need for attention. She felt she was losing me, so she went looking for someone to make her feel wanted again. But instead of talking to me, her husband, her partner, she sought validation from a stranger and destroyed everything we'd built in the process. I couldn't cry anymore. I had no tears left. Just anger. Cold, bitter, corrosive anger. I called my kids again and explained more of what had happened. I told them not to blame their mother too harshly. As much as I hated her actions, she was still their mother, and our grandchildren's grandmother. I wouldn't poison them with hatred. That wasn't my place. But I also made it clear, I was done. When I finally arrived at my daughter's house, she wrapped her arms around me the moment I stepped through the door. I held my granddaughter in my lap for the first time in days and just let her babble nonsense to me. It was the first moment since the call that I felt something close to peace. But deep down, I knew the war was far from over. Linda hadn't just broken my heart. She had detonated our entire world. And no matter how many pieces I picked up, nothing would ever look the same again. By the time I settled in at my daughter's house, I was no longer the same man who had kissed Linda goodbye just days earlier. I was quieter, harder. The betrayal hadn't just changed the way I saw her. It had changed the way I saw myself. Everything I thought I knew was now under suspicion. My memories had become unreliable. My instincts, once so confident, now felt like a cruel joke. And yet, despite everything, a part of me still needed answers. Closure, maybe. Or just the bitter confirmation that what I felt in my gut was true. I wasn't prepared for how much worse the truth would get. The morning after I arrived, I received a call from Melissa again, Linda's sister. Her voice was hesitant, nervous. She didn't want to overstep, but she felt I needed to know something before Linda got home. I listened, my stomach already churning, as she relayed the version of events Linda had confessed to her during a breakdown in the hotel room. The version Linda told me? That it was a drunken, heat-of-the-moment mistake with strangers? That was fiction. What really happened was so much more deliberate, so much more calculated. Linda had known the man for months. He was a client, a voice she often spoke with over the phone, someone she joked about occasionally, but never seriously enough to raise alarms. When she mentioned going out of state for the trip, it wasn't just a vacation, it was an opportunity. A prearranged rendezvous. The plan was to meet him casually. Her sister's tagging along wasn't part of her original idea, so when they ended up going to the bar together, Linda pretended she didn't know the man and his wife. Played it off like a spontaneous encounter. But once her sisters had called it a night, she stayed behind. She knew exactly what she was doing. They didn't just drink. They flirted. They reminisced about their flirty conversations on the phone. According to what she told Melissa, the wife was all in. It wasn't just some swinger setup. They made Linda feel like a goddess. Like she was desired. Powerful. She confessed that she'd fantasized about this kind of encounter for years, being with another man while someone else watched. She wasn't drunk. Not falling down, out of control drunk. No, she drank just enough to numb the guilt, but not enough to forget what she wanted. She had full control of herself. And the worst part? She never intended to tell me. Her exact words, according to Melissa, were, "It was supposed to be a one-time thing, just to get it out of my system." I never planned on Mark finding out. Melissa had been horrified. She demanded Linda tell me the truth, or she would. That's when the guilt finally cracked through the fantasy. Linda broke down and confessed, but only enough to save face. She gave me a sanitized version of the story, one where she was a helpless victim of circumstance, rather than the architect of her own betrayal. I listened to Melissa's words in silence. Not because I didn't believe her, but because every syllable was a dagger. I thanked her for telling me. She apologized, again and again, as though she had something to do with it. But I knew better. This was all Linda. Every piece of it. My hands shook as I ended the call. I sat on the porch, watching my granddaughter chase Bubbles across the yard, and I felt the bitter sting of dual realities. One part of me wanted to hold on to the version of Linda I had loved. The woman who laughed at my bad jokes, who rubbed my shoulders after long days, who once looked at me like I hung the stars. But another part of me, the part growing louder by the hour, screamed that woman didn't exist anymore. She had been replaced. Not just by someone who cheated, but someone who lied, calculated, premeditated, and deceived. The betrayal wasn't a one-time moment of weakness. It was a string of choices, all made in the dark, each one pulling her further away from the life we built. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, going over every moment from the past year. Every strange look, every odd pause in a conversation, every time she pulled away, even when things between us seemed good again. And the more I thought about it, the more one word echoed in my mind. Intent. She intended to do this. She planned it, fantasized about it, lied to me, then tried to soften the blow with a half-truth. I realized then that it wasn't just my heart that had been broken, it was my trust. And trust, once shattered, isn't something that can ever be fully repaired. In the early hours of the morning, I sat down and drafted a message. Not to Linda, not yet, but to a divorce attorney. I wasn't sure what I'd need, or how this process worked. All I knew was that I couldn't share a life with someone capable of burying a dagger in my back and smiling while doing it. She was coming home soon, but I wouldn't be there, because the man she left behind was gone, and the man who remained had nothing left to give her. I didn't return home for 3 days. I needed time, space, and distance to brace myself for what I knew would be one of the hardest confrontations of my life. Linda had sent dozens of messages, all of them swinging wildly between desperation, regret, and denial. She was sorry. She missed me. She said she hated herself. She begged for one more chance. But every message read like a performance, like someone trying to manipulate the narrative, not tell the truth. By the time I walked through the front door again, the house felt like a stranger's. Cold. Quiet. There were signs she had been here. Her bag in the hallway, a half-drunk glass of wine on the kitchen counter, the smell of her perfume lingering in the living room. My stomach twisted at the scent. What used to bring me comfort now made me sick. She must have heard me enter because seconds later, she appeared in the doorway. She looked broken. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, her hair disheveled like she hadn't slept in days. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears and rushed toward me. I instinctively stepped back and raised my hand. "Don't touch me," I said coldly. "Sit down." She froze in her tracks, her sobs catching in her throat, and slowly backed away, lowering herself onto the couch like a scolded child. I didn't speak right away. I walked past her into the kitchen, put the kettle on, and made us both a coffee. Not out of kindness, just necessity. I needed something to hold in my hands to stop them from shaking. When I returned, I placed her mug on the table and sat across from her. Her eyes never left mine. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "This isn't about you anymore, Linda," I said. "It's about me. About this marriage. About the lies." She flinched but nodded. "I want the truth," I continued. "No more softening it. No more editing the story to make it sound like something it wasn't. I've spoken to your sister. I know more than you think. Now's your chance to come clean." At first, she hesitated. Then, perhaps sensing that she had nothing left to lose, she began to talk. She told me the affair wasn't random, that the conversations with the client had turned flirtatious months ago, that it started with casual teasing and escalated to sexual undertones. Then video calls. She admitted to 2 explicit sessions, one where she watched the couple have sex, and another where she performed for them. I sat still. I didn't react. I couldn't. My body had numbed itself, shielding me from the weight of what I was hearing. She explained that when the opportunity for the trip came up, she knew he'd be in the same city. They coordinated a time to meet. When her sisters decided to tag along, they had to act like strangers in the bar. But as soon as her sisters left, she went to their hotel room. She told me the wife gave permission, that it had always been Linda's fantasy to sleep with another man while another woman watched, that she felt wanted, desirable, powerful, that it was exciting because it was dangerous. She tried to justify it, blamed insecurity, blamed my weight loss, said she didn't know who she was anymore. But I wasn't interested in excuses. I stopped her mid-sentence. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" She looked down, her lips trembling, then shook her head. "No," she whispered. "It was supposed to be a secret. Just once." I nodded slowly. "So, if your sister hadn't threatened to tell me, I'd still be in the dark, living in the lie." She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. She reached across the table for my hand, but I pulled away. "I told you once," I said, "that cheating was the one thing I would never accept. And not only did you do it, but you planned it. You nurtured it. You lied about it. And now, you want to pretend like it's something we can fix." "I'll do anything," she cried. "I'll let you have an affair. I'll forgive you for anything. Just don't leave me." Her words made me recoil. It wasn't love. It was desperation, bargaining, humiliation. She was willing to degrade herself just to keep me tethered to her wreckage. "No," I said firmly. "This isn't a negotiation. You killed something sacred. You didn't just cheat on me. You buried the man who trusted you with his whole heart. I'll never touch you again. I don't even know who you are anymore." She began to shake, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering that she loved me, that she made a terrible mistake. But I'd heard it all before. The truth was laid bare now, raw and unforgiving. I stood up and walked to the doorway. "We're done, Linda," I said. "You'll get the divorce papers soon. Don't call me unless it's about the kids or grandkids. Whatever we had is over. And the woman I married, she died the night you planned to betray me." And with that, I left her there, alone, broken, and surrounded by the silence she created. I didn't look back when I walked out that door. I didn't want to see her crying, curled up on the couch, begging for something she had already destroyed. I drove aimlessly at first, the roads blurring past my windshield as I gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from flying apart. Every breath I took felt like it was dragging nails through my lungs. I ended up back at my daughter's place. The moment I walked in, she knew. She didn't ask questions. She just hugged me, tight and silent, and let me collapse into the arms of the only family I still trusted. Later that evening, I sat down and spoke to both of my kids. I laid everything out. Not all the vulgar details. I couldn't bring myself to say some of it aloud, but enough for them to understand the depth of the betrayal. They were angry, disgusted, protective, but I told them what I had told them before. Linda is still your mother. She loves you, and she's a good grandmother. Don't let what she did to me destroy what she still means to you. That part was important to me. I didn't want my children poisoned by her sins. But as for me, I was done playing the role of the understanding husband. The man who overlooked emotional distance, who forgave the cold silences, who once blamed himself for a dead bedroom. That man had been burned away. The next morning, I returned to the house. Linda had followed my instructions. Her bags were packed. She had cleaned up, left a note saying she'd be staying with her mother. There were a few more pleas scribbled in the margins of the page, but I didn't read them. I tossed it in the trash without a second glance. Then I sat down at the dining table, the same table where we had celebrated anniversaries, shared birthday cakes, helped our kids with homework, and I started making the divorce checklist. House, sell it. Business, sell it. Vehicles, divide them. Possessions, whatever. Memories, ashes. That afternoon, she came by to gather the rest of her things. She walked in slowly, like a prisoner returning to the scene of her own sentencing. Her eyes were rimmed red, her voice hoarse. But I didn't flinch. She tried, one last time, to plead her case. Said we could start over. Go to therapy. Said I could sleep with other women if that's what it took to even the scales. I almost laughed. Listen to yourself, I told her. You're bargaining with your dignity. That's how far this has fallen. She didn't respond. Just stood there, crying silently. I'll never touch you again, Linda, I said. I don't care what fantasy you fulfilled, or whether you think it wasn't that good. You invited another man into your body while his wife watched. You planned it. You chose it. And you would have kept lying if you hadn't been caught. That's not love. That's cowardice. She whispered that she was ashamed, that she didn't know what she was thinking, that she missed me so much it physically hurt. But I had reached a new place, a colder place. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even grief anymore. It was detachment, apathy. I'll have the papers sent to you this week, I said. We'll sell the house and the business. You can have the car. I'll keep the truck and my bike. We split everything else 50-50ths. From this point forward, don't contact me unless it's about the kids or grandkids. We're not partners anymore. We're not anything. She called me cruel, said I was being cold and inhuman. I'm not being cruel, I told her. I'm being honest. You want warmth? Compassion? You should have thought of that before you slept with someone else and decided I didn't deserve to know. After she left, I sat in that quiet house, our house, for one final night. The silence was no longer suffocating. It was peaceful. I slept like a rock, better than I had in years. Over the next few days, I put everything into motion. Contacted the realtor, met with a lawyer, began the process of dissolving a life that had taken decades to build. But I didn't hesitate, because once trust dies, there's nothing left to mourn. Only the memories linger, and even those began to lose color, fading like old photos left out in the sun. My daughter came by often to help with packing. My son called every day. They were supportive, encouraging, and quietly furious at their mother. But I made it clear, again and again, don't let my pain become your grudge. She failed me, not you. I knew the months ahead would be long. Divorce takes time. The legal system demands patience. But the emotional divorce? That was already done. Linda wasn't my wife anymore. She was just a stranger who wore her face. And I was ready to bury the marriage, once and for all. Weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, signatures, and box after box of memories I no longer wanted to unpack. The house, our house, was listed on the market. The business? Sold, surprisingly quickly, to one of our regular clients who'd always admired what we built. I barely blinked when I signed the contracts. What once symbolized years of hard work and partnership now felt like an anchor tied to the neck of a man I no longer recognized. And I was ready to cut the rope. I kept my promise to Linda. Every interaction was limited to logistics. brief texts about the sale, about bank transfers, about what to do with the damn cats. She was staying at her mother's, and based on what I heard from the kids, spiraling further into denial. When she came over to sign the real estate paperwork, she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her makeup barely covered the red beneath her eyes, and her hands trembled when she held the pen. But what struck me most wasn't her appearance, it was her audacity. "You still love me," she whispered as she passed the contract back across the table. "You'll change your mind. I know you will. We'll grow old together." This was just a speed bump. I stared at her for a long moment, stunned by her delusion. Then I leaned in slightly and said, without blinking, "You're ing nuts." Her face twisted like I'd slapped her. "You lied. You cheated. You had another man inside you while his wife watched. You planned it, fantasized about it, hid it from me, and now you think that's a speed bump? You destroyed 33 years of trust and love for a cheap thrill and a fantasy." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "Don't tell me it wasn't that good. Don't try to minimize it. I don't care if it was the best or worst night of your life. The moment you crossed that line, you killed what we had. The woman I married, she died that night. You're just a ghost wearing her skin." She cried, as she always did, tried to reach for me again, as if one touch could rewind time. But I didn't flinch. "There's no hope for reconciliation," I said. "None. I don't want to hear your voice unless it's about the kids. I don't want to know who you're seeing, or how sorry you are, or what dreams you've had about us growing old on the porch swing. That story is over." And it was. What surprised me most wasn't the grief anymore. It was the freedom. I thought I'd be consumed by rage or sorrow, but what I felt was clarity. There was no more wondering, no more tiptoeing around problems. It was done. Clean. Irreversible. The world, somehow, looked brighter. I moved into a small rental while waiting for the divorce to finalize. Something modest. Quiet. Just a place to sleep and breathe while I figured out what life looked like as a single man in his 50s. I bought myself a new coffee maker. Replaced the dishes with ones that didn't have memories attached. Got fresh bed sheets that had never been slept in by anyone but me. And for the first time in years, I started living just for me. I reconnected with old friends, went on long motorcycle rides with no destination, and sat in cafes just to people watch with a book in hand. And women, well, they noticed. It was strange, getting attention again. Flattering, even. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Still, it was nice to know I hadn't been completely erased by Linda's betrayal. That somewhere under the wreckage, the man I used to be had survived. My daughter told me Linda was still holding on to hope. She believed that once the dust settled, I'd come back. That I was just angry. That 33 years of love couldn't be tossed away so easily. But she was wrong. I didn't leave Linda because I stopped loving her. I left because she stopped loving me the moment she chose herself over us. She didn't just cheat on me. She betrayed our promises, our future, our history. And there's no fixing that. The betrayal wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misstep. It was a conscious decision, a slow-motion train wreck she never tried to stop. And now, all I wanted was distance. Peace. The kind of quiet that isn't empty, but healing. Linda once told me that I was the strongest man she'd ever known. She was right. Because it takes strength to walk away from someone you love when they've torn your heart to pieces. And even more to not look back. 3 months. That's how long it's been since Linda destroyed our marriage. Since I sat at our kitchen table and told the woman I had loved for 3 decades that I would never touch her again. Since I walked out of the only life I had known and into the unknown, alone, angry, wounded, but determined. At first, the silence felt brutal. The mornings were the worst. I'd wake up and reach instinctively for a body that wasn't there anymore. The space beside me was cold, both literally and figuratively. But little by little, that cold became comfort. That silence became peace. I threw myself into the task of rebuilding my finances, my identity, my sense of purpose. The house sold fast, faster than I expected. The business was handed off without drama, and I took my half and made decisions with surgical precision. I bought 2 small units, one near my daughter, one near my son. That way, no matter where I went, I'd be close to my grandchildren. Family had become my anchor. I picked up part-time work at a competing firm, ironically run by someone who used to be our biggest rival. When he heard what happened, he offered me a role, no strings attached. Said he respected how I handled the divorce. I took it, not for the money, but for structure. Something to get me out of bed. Something that didn't remind me of her. With the chaos behind me, I hit the road. Just me, my motorcycle, and a full tank of gas. No maps. No plans. I'd stop wherever I felt like. Coastal towns, country diners, quiet forests. I met people. Had conversations that didn't begin with betrayal and end in pity. Some women flirted. A few nights led to more. But I made it clear. No strings, no promises, just shared company in a world that kept spinning. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. Not haunted, not empty, just free. Linda, meanwhile, was still clinging to a fantasy. I heard bits and pieces through the kids, mostly from my daughter, who tried to be the bridge between us without taking sides. Linda still believed I'd come around, that all she needed to do was wait me out, that eventually, I'd miss her, that I'd remember the good and let it outweigh the bad. But what she didn't understand was this. The betrayal didn't end with the affair, it began with it. Every lie she told afterward, every tear she weaponized, every attempt to twist her shame into victim had only buried us deeper. She didn't lose me because of one night. She lost me because she proved I never truly had her. When she came over to finalize the property paperwork, she gave me this look, half hopeful, half haunted. "You'll forgive me," she said, as if it were a statement of fact. "You still love me." I looked her square in the eye. "You're right," I said. "I did love you, more than you probably deserved. But I also loved who I thought you were. That woman doesn't exist anymore." Her smile faltered. She tried to say something else, but I raised a hand. "Let me be clear. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care where you go. I don't care if you cry yourself to sleep or drink yourself numb. Your life is yours now, just as mine is mine. Don't confuse my silence with softness. I'm done, Linda. Completely." She left without another word. That was the last time I saw her. I'd be lying if I said I never think about what we had. I do. Sometimes I remember the good years and feel a sting of loss. But it passes quickly, like a wave that rolls in, touches the shore, then disappears back into the sea. I've made peace with what happened. Not because I accept it, but because I won't let it define me. Some nights I sit on the porch of my new place, a glass of bourbon in hand, listening to the wind and watching the stars. There's no one beside me yet, and that's okay. If love finds me again, it will be because I chose it, not because I needed it to survive. And when people ask me what happened to my marriage, I tell them the truth. My wife cheated, lied, tried to bury the truth under tears and promises. And I walked away. They usually ask, "Don't you miss her?" And I answer the same every time. No, I miss the version of her I thought was real. But that woman was fiction. And I'm done living in someone else's fantasy. This is my story now. And I'm just getting started. You're right, that slipped past me. Here's the corrected version of the reflection in English, keeping the storytelling voice and tone consistent with the previous parts. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that love alone is never enough to hold a marriage together. 33 years, we built a life, a family, a future. And yet, it only took one choice, one betrayal, to burn it all to the ground. I used to believe that time, loyalty, and shared history could overcome anything. But the truth is, once trust is broken, there's no turning back. For those of us in the later chapters of life, the lesson is clear. Never ignore the small cracks in your relationship, and never sacrifice your self-respect to keep someone by your side. It's never too late to start over. Painful as it may be, peace is better than pretending. Forgiveness can be noble, but so is walking away when someone proves they no longer deserve your loyalty. Love yourself first. Protect your dignity. And if someone betrays you, don't let fear of being alone chain you to the wreckage. Let go. Grieve, grow, and live. Because life, what's left of it, is still yours to reclaim.